And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Welcome in to RBLR Bandits here at RBLR Sports. My name is Eureka Wheeler, and as always, my partner in crime as we get ready to have all of the fun the law will allow here at the Bandits Cast is the one and only Zach Blaine. What's good, my guy? You are still in Florida, not in Nashville. How are we doing? This will be different next week, though.
Yeah, next week we'll be up in not quite Nashville, but close enough.
Sorry,
we'll be in Sevierville.
Ooh.
Just been a busy week of packing. Figured I'd take a break and get on here and cause up some football drama with you.
Let's go, baby. Well, I'm glad you're taking a rest from taping up all those boxes, and your muscles will be sore. I don't know if you had any buddies helping you out with the lift or unpacking, but hopefully you're not doing all of that by yourself. But one thing you can rest easy as you're driving up there is that we are less than 23 days away from opening week. As you are listening to this at RBLR Sports, we have 23 days, buddy. We have less than a month.
Yeah.
Bandit ball, man.
It's getting more and more real the closer we get. I am pumped. I'm excited. I cannot wait.
Well, last week, as we march along to opening week, last week we talked about wide receivers and tight ends. So if you haven't heard that yet, it is in the archives. Go back, find that episode. And while you're there, however you're listening to this, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button so that you can get every single episode as it drops. You don't have to wait for the tweet. You don't have to wait for the link. It's going to be right there. This week, though, we are talking offensive line. For the next 2 weeks, we are getting down and dirty in the trenches. The big boys are getting their shine. But first, we'll talk about some of the news that was broke, and that is that the USFL finally have released their rule book, or at least the bigger points of what the rules are going to be. There's three big ones that I want to get to, but what's the first one you want to talk about, Mr. Blaine?
All right, the first one I want to talk about before we get into the big ones, the one that I'm having the most difficulty with, and maybe it's just me, the pass interference rules.
Okay.
If a pass does not cross the line of scrimmage, there can be no pass interference or ineligible player downfield.
Yes.
So does that, to me, and obviously I'm sure they'll go out and explain it in more detail later on, but to me that feels like, well, as long as the pass doesn't get off, we could just tackle all the receivers. And, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
I think that's more of a speed of the game kind of thing. I think that, like, if you're running a screen pass and it's an I get what you're saying. I love the mentality of, like, if you're scheming up a defense and they're throwing nothing but screens and tosses and whatever, that you can just, like, take guys out ahead of time. But I think it's more for, especially at this level, you're going to have some players that get downfield ineligible or something like that. I think this is more about the penalties because of if the now, but man, I'm even as I'm putting this together, like, if the pass doesn't cross the line of scrimmage, does that mean you can just send everyone downfield? Like, you know, since there are no ineligible players, you can scheme up something like that. Like you were thinking from a defensive perspective, or like they would have the advantage. But
yeah,
I'm thinking of it like, say you've got your big tight end, or you're pulling a guard, or you got a really, like, you have some kind of offensive lineman that's nimble. You could get him to that second level, like, super quick without worrying about an ineligible field. So there's offensive things on that side too.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And to help the offense as well, there's one of the rules that says you can have 2 forward passes from behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
So that plays into even more. We can just, as long as we don't pass the line of scrimmage, we can send everyone downfield and throw the ball forward. As long as it doesn't pass the line of scrimmage, technically you can't get a illegal man downfield. So if they throw it 2 times behind the line and they find a hole, like, that just...
I'm loving this. I'm loving the wheels turning in Mr. Blaine's head there, man. The pass rule was in the XFL. You could do 2 forward passes. Teams didn't really utilize it, but unfortunately, the XFL was only 5 games, and you saw teams still trying to work out how to do the rules, and it might be this way too, where for the first maybe month to 6 weeks, you're gonna see pretty straightforward, like especially because these teams are just now getting into Birmingham, guys. Like
yeah, exactly.
So I think you're gonna see pretty standard, NFL college level plays and just kind of the football you're used to. Where the scheming is going to be like, where do we throw in one of these new wrinkles? Where do we utilize this? Where do we figure out, this player actually is adept and he can throw the ball, so we'll do the second forward pass or something like that. Or if a guy throws it to the quarterback and then it's supposed to be a wildcat play, but he gets it to the quarterback on a first pass and then it didn't cross his line of scrimmage, so now he can throw the, like the flea flicker type thing, except it's your quarterback throwing it. There's weird wrinkles that this can get into, but unfortunately we didn't see a lot of it the last spring league that this was in, so I think it'll be a while until we see that, but it's there, and I like it.
Yeah, now hear me out. Okay. Right? 2 forward passes. We have a guy on our team named John Franklin III.
I love it.
Who played quarterback in college and high school. Do you think that potentially there's a chance they knew these rules before they were released to us? And
I hope so.
Maybe that's a reason why he was drafted to our team.
Yeah, I don't think that they didn't know these rules before they even got signed, or maybe I'm hoping the coaches had a hand in kind of like formulating these rules, or saying like,
at least a little bit,
as like a competition committee getting with Pereira and saying like, hey, like, we liked this from the XFL. We wish we always had this kind of thing. Like these were wacky. I know you and I off air were talking about like, how much of a departure from NFL and NCAA rules are this going to be. And there's been some controversy about these, and we'll get into the 3 big ones. But I like what they've done so far, and I don't think there's any weird gimmick. I don't think there's any kind of my personal opinion is like. The first XFL back in 2001 had a bunch of really weird, stupid, gimmicky stuff. The last XFL did not do that, and we're getting more into the innovation, creativity of the game without really taking away what is good about football.
Yeah, you still have the meat and potatoes of football without it being a WWE show. Nothing against WWE shows, but to me that's not where a football field is not where that's supposed to be. But I think that they're doing enough innovation to make it interesting, and like you mentioned before, the pace of play is going to be improved, I think. But I'm just glad that they didn't throw in the college football catch rule or anything like that yet. I say again, keyword yet, because we don't have the whole rule book.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, like the one you brought up pace of play. The one thing they didn't bring in is a quicker play count, clock, which was a staple in the XFL and the AAF, where it was like, we are pushing the pace of play with a quick play clock, and that did not happen in this time. So we'll see how that works. But some things they did innovate with. The first that we'll bring up is the extra point. So now, as a team who has scored a touchdown, you can try a 1-point try from 33 yards as a point after kick. You could run a play from the 2-yard line for a 2-point conversion, pretty standard. Or now, in the USFL, you can try a scrimmage play from the 10-yard line for 3 points. So the first thing I think is that now in the XFL, a 2-point game or 2-score game is an 18-point difference.
Yeah.
Buddy, we are going to see fourth quarter and second quarter comebacks for sure, because if you score 2 touchdowns, or if you want to blow someone out, you can score 9 points on a touchdown.
Yeah, I think I think we're going to have a lot of high-scoring games.
Sure.
Now, again, this, in all honesty, it could be all for nothing. We could see most teams go for just the 1-point field goal. They did draft kickers for a reason, you know what I mean? So I could see there's a chance where I could see them just being normal football. We're going to go for one. But I think that it adds the element of you're never really out of the game.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like, all right, well, literally all we got to do is score and then convert from the 10-yard line. Which I say that like it's easy, and we probably couldn't do it, but like these professional athletes probably can.
Well, the mentality part of the psychological thing of like, yeah, you know what? Think about this. If your opponent scores a touchdown and they don't convert the 2-point, they only got 6 out of 9 points. Like, you're still in this game. Like, or you might have a chance. So these just little differences in mentality. 18 points is a mile long difference in the NFL, but in the USFL, man, let's go. We could see some. I mean, you talk about the Tom Brady 28-3 comeback, and you talk about some of the other comebacks that have been in football history. You're going to get potential for a lot of those to happen here. And one caveat or one additive to that is there is a rule that the clock will stop on a first down in the last 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarter. So the XFL had a similar thing. They called it the comeback period. And it actually in a few games it absolutely played into how teams called plays. Because it's like the NCAA where it's like if you get a first down, you stop the clock, which I like. So no deficit is too deep, I guess, with these rules.
Yeah, I think it's going to make for a much more exciting end of games. Obviously, I don't think we're going to have close games every single week, but I think it's going to make the ones that are close just that much more exciting.
We'll talk about exciting. The next rule we'll get into is the overtime rules. So if for some reason there is a tie after regulation, each team will alternate plays from the 2-yard line. This is new. A successful try, so if you actually get the conversion, it's a 2-point score, and each team will get 3 attempts to score 2 points. If both teams score, or they score the same amount after those 3 attempts, then it's sudden death. And it continues until there is a winner. There are no ties in the United States Football League.
So my biggest question with that, not really a question, but and I wouldn't call it a concern either. I don't know what it is, but maybe just a thought.
Okay.
Is that, so it doesn't really clarify, is that just oh, you know what? Never mind. You'll receive 2 points. Never mind.
I think it's just a play. It's not like you can't kick. You can't kick a 2-point kick or something.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Like, can you kick a 2-point field goal? Can you?
To be honest with you, if you're gonna do these silly extra points, kick it for 1, go for 2, go for 3. Why did you not just have that as the overtime?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you can choose to go from the 33-yard kick, or you could choose to go to the 2-yard line for 2, or run a 10-yard play for 3, and just like, hey, here you go. And just do that until one team has more points after each team has the ball once or twice or whatever. Like,
yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I'm a huge, I don't watch much college football. Like, there's too much going on. But I will say that is the overtime in college football is one of my favorite parts of the game. Yeah. And I wish the NFL would do more like that. I don't think the NFL's rules are fair. That's a whole nother conversation to have. But
sure.
I feel like I would have liked to see more of a college-esque, which this kind of is, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make very much sense from the 2-yard line.
Yeah. Well, if you're just going to run play, I mean, you're running 2-point conversions, and that's great. But again, I think the strategy of it, other than are you going to run or pass, right? Like, okay, there's that. Versus, like, if you knew you're going to get 3 attempts and you didn't get the first one, okay, maybe we need to go for 3 points from the scrimmage play or something like that, right? That would have been my one tweak is, okay, if we're going to do this, let's just do the extra point rule in overtime.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it feels like we're gonna see probably 98% of the time it's gonna be a run play from the 2 yard line.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me that the whole game is gonna come down to whose line can block better at the 2 yard line.
Yeah.
But I do, in a weird way, I like this more than the NFL's rules.
Mm-hmm.
But it just the tweaking that I would have done is to make it more like the NCAA or college in general, to where you set them up at, I think it's a 25-yard line and they have to score from there. Still sudden death, still everyone gets a turn, but not as predictable as what I think the overtime rules are going to be for this.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, this is the first year. They're going to try it out. We'll see. Hopefully they get through a whole season and we get enough data on it and we figure out, okay, this is going to be, we could tweak this and just make the extra point the thing. But let's talk about, you said kickers are in this league for a reason, and let's get into it. One thing they are changing, though, about kicking is the onside kick rule. So from what I think Zach and I have read the rule to be, is that kickoffs are from the 25-yard line, and if you kick the ball inside of 20 yards, it's a live ball. Like, you could still onside kick it. It's just you're at a disadvantage because the other team now has the ball at the 35 or 44 or something like that. But if it goes beyond 20 yards in a kickoff, then the receiving team has to be the one to touch it. You cannot get the ball past that. However, outside of that, which is like, that's pretty, I think we all can wrap our head around that. That's like standard football, okay? But there's a new play. The kicking team can run a 4th and 12 play from its own 33-yard line. And if they convert that play, it's just like an onside kick. They can keep the ball and move on to try to score. And if they do not get that 4th and 12 play, it's a turnover or whatever you want to call it. The defense will be receiving the ball. So what are your thoughts on these little tweaks on kickoffs and onside kicks and inevitably the strategy of this onside kick rule?
I think it's interesting. This is one that I will say I'm on board for.
Okay.
I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Reading it, I was a little confused at first until we kind of started talking about it. But between that and the 4th and 12 thing, which I believe the AAF did something along those lines.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it was a 4th and 12 or a 4th and 15 or whatever it was, but I know it was along those lines. And I remember the one AAF game I went to, they actually did it. And it was, I mean, it brings more excitement to the game.
It's hype, yeah.
So that's that. I wouldn't necessarily change anything about it. Maybe my understanding of it I would change, but aside from that, no, it seems like it's going to be exciting and fun.
Well, you still have less than 23 days to figure all that out before week 1. But the guys that are going to be playing in that game, let's get into the trenches, man. Let's get in there. And let's talk about the offensive linemen that your Tampa Bay Bandits have brought in through the draft and the supplemental draft. Zach, you and I have both picked 4 of the 8 players that are on the roster as offensive linemen. Who's your first guy that you want to talk about?
The first guy I'm going to be talking about is a man out of Georgia, Mr. Tyler Catalina.
Ooh.
Cool-ass name.
Yeah, that's
cool-ass
a cool name.
So he is out of Georgia. These guys were hard to find any gameplay and stuff. Like, obviously you could find it, but it's very he's just a big dude. He's 6'4", 330 pounds. Technically he's a guard, but he also played tackle. And at 6'4", 330, I very well could see him playing a tackle role for us.
Okay.
He was not at the combine. So the information I have was from his pro day. Mm-hmm. So he ran a 5.41.
I was about to say, my guy,
really fast. A 5.41 40, which for a lineman is about average. He did have 29 reps at 225 though. So what that tells me is that he's strong. Okay. And that plays being that strong and that big plays well for an interior offensive lineman like a guard or a center. But he's, again, I feel like he's quick enough to play tackle, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that from there was a particular profile, and we've been talking about it in the last couple weeks about like big school, super athletic guys. That's what we want. I think that Catalina came to, in my mind, he's a guy who played in the NFL practice squad with Minnesota and Carolina. He's a guy who actually started.
Yeah, so he started 2 games.
He started for Washington Commanders. He played in like about 7 games overall. He's played guard. He's played tackle. Big. He's got high energy. Gets to it. Tackle at the SEC kind of got exposed a little bit from just the super quick pass rushing that happens in the SEC. So we'll see how that works at this level. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he could play guard, he could play tackle. And a lot of these guys, I actually do not know who's going to play left tackle, right tackle, guard. I mean, guys have been drafted into these positions, but the 4 guys that I looked up for today, like a lot of these guys can play different positions, and Tyler definitely is one has played different positions.
Yeah, and I think I was going to go over kind of his NFL experience, and you got it right on the head. Well, he replaced. Well, no, you're good, because that's exactly what I was going to say. He did play for Washington, and he replaced Brandon Scherf at the guard position, and he didn't play bad, and if I'm not mistaken, he got hurt and got put on the injured reserve, which is why he was released from from Washington.
Okay.
But he was never going to have a starting spot, obviously, because Brandon Scherf is one of the better offensive linemen in the NFL. But he's an effective run blocker, and I think that he's going to be able to pass block for us as well. Okay. But I do think that he's going to be obviously definitely going to be a starter, in my opinion.
Awesome, man. I'll get right into mine. Corbin Kaufusi is mine. He's a 6'9", 280-pound a guy who came out of BYU. But interestingly, he was a defensive end at BYU. More on that and more on all our players here in a minute. But he was a defensive end that converted to offensive line in NFL practice squads. He was in New Orleans, he was with the Jets, and he was with the Niners last year. So you get a guy here who is athletic. He has a really good flexibility, and he's like, because he's 6'9", man, he should be playing basketball. Huge, so because of that, he's got really good footwork. He's got really good flexibility and athleticism, but he pairs that with smart hands, good technique. He's got a very high motor. He grades out well for toughness, and he gets in there. And a lot of that, I think, comes from his pedigree as a coach's son. His dad played in the NFL for 3 years and was the D-line coach at BYU. So you get a guy who's probably been getting mentored his entire life to play this game by his father, and that's why it doesn't surprise me he was able to convert from one side of the line to the other. However, being at BYU, he went on a religious mission during his college years. So as far as the NFL, when he came out, he was kind of an older rookie, and him being so tall, he still kind of has to figure out how to use his height against like these lower center of gravity guys who, as the game has changed, they want to get low and get quick and get back. And so you kind of have to, as much as you have a motor, you still need good technique and you need to have good lateral movement. And Corbin's still trying to show that he can actually play this position at the professional level. So Raw, I think, is he's got skill, he's got pedigree, he's been in the NFL squads, but still trying to prove that he can put it all together at the professional level, I guess, is my overview.
Yeah, and I think that him being a coach's son bodes well for him as far as being able to adapt and being able to learn, because that's what he's been taught. Like that's how That's how he's supposed to be. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but you're kind of as a coach's kid, you're kind of instilled to know that you're never going to be you could always be better, I guess I should say. You're never going to be perfect. You could always be better. And I think that bodes well for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the next guy you're bringing up?
Next guy for me is Mr. Jawan, and I don't want to kill his name, Bushel Beatty.
I believe that's correct.
So he is a guy from Michigan who also played in the NFL he didn't start in the NFL, but he was on a practice squad of Washington, Dallas, and Carolina.
Okay.
And he was in the XFL on Houston.
Okay.
He's a very big guy, huge dude, 6'5", another 330-pounder. He was at the NFL Combine, so he has a profile on him, which I will give you guys more info on that. It should be a little bit easier than just going off of draftprospects.com. So he had a prospect grade of a 5.10, which puts him right at a high priority free agent out of the draft. His knocks are that his footwork is not very good, and I don't want to say gives up on plays, but once he's beat, there's not very much effort to get unbeat.
Okay, he kind of sulks or something.
Yeah, it's more like, I messed up. Oh well, but he is 6'5", 330 pounds. So again, great for an interior lineman. I think that's going to be where we see him at one of the guard positions, and I think that he can be. I think that he could be one of those guys that's just mean and nasty in the middle for us.
Yeah, well, speaking of in the middle, the one guy they drafted as a center in the middle is Bruno Regan. He's a 6'3". You want to talk big guys, right? Here's another one, 6'3", 322 pounds, out of Vanderbilt. He has spent some time in camp with the Chiefs, and he was a former XFL St. Louis Battlehawk lineman for what quarterback played for the Battlehawks again?
Brady White, right?
It was not. It was Jordan Ta'amu. It was QB1, and what's funny is Bruno Regan's actually part of the Battlehawks who invented the Bud Light Seltzer celebration, which was famous in the XFL and is awesome, and you should definitely go watch them. They're insanity. So much insanity, they caused $10,000 of damage to the Dallas Renegades locker room.
Oh, wow.
But eventually the league made it a sponsorship with the Bud Light Seltzer, so hell yeah. Good things about Bruno. He was graded out as like a 6th or 7th round prospect by NFL draft scouts. He started at right guard and center, another versatile person that if he was drafted as a center, I'm sure he will be slotted in there as a center. However, he can play right guard. And talking about those Battlehawks days, man, he held opposing defenders to a less than 2% quarterback pressure allowed, which was the 8th best as an offensive lineman of any position in the XFL. He's very athletic. I mean, you're talking 322 pounds. Yeah, here's a dude who's a literal judo champion. He trains Brazilian jiu-jitsu right now. He loves martial arts. It's what's got him through these days of not being a professional athlete. And that's one of the things we talk about with the Yeah Buts, is that he, coming out of college, coming into college, he kind of had this do you really love football kind of thing, because you do all this extracurricular stuff that great, you're good at it, but like, you know, we get you had a 57-0 record as a junior, as a state champion in wrestling, but do you love wrestling and judo more than you love football? And I coaches are going to definitely be like, yeah, that's a character flaw. If you like to do something different than just like football, you're going to get weeded out. And I think that's one of the things that has been a knock on him. But in reading some of his interviews that he's done since then, I think he's taken that to heart and said, you know what, like, he was a little wayward, he was a little off the beaten path, but now he has recommitted himself. He does own a martial arts studio, but he's going to take this opportunity and use it for what it is. So I guess there was one other knock that, and this is more of at being Tampa Bay, being a USF Bull. He chose Vanderbilt over USF, and And he was quoted literally as saying that other than partying, there's no other reason to go to South Florida.
I mean, why else do you go to college?
well, Vanderbilt, man, Vanderbilt, you gotta be smart. You can't be an idiot and go to Vanderbilt. I know they get ragged on for being like the bottom barrel of the SEC, but you gotta be smart to get into Vanderbilt. So you're talking about a guy, he's athletic, he's smart, he's literally can judo throw dudes across the field. So I'm excited. We'll see. We'll see what that gets into. But one thing he would look really good in, though, is that, he throws all those guys, and you got to do a lot of training, and so you're going to go through a lot of t-shirts, and so I think Bruno would be way ahead of the game if he was wearing underneath his pads or as he was training BJJ, if he was wearing one of our killer t-shirts from shop.rblrsports.com. We have t-shirts in the colors of your favorite football, baseball, hockey, soccer, you name it. We've got designs that celebrate our Tampa Bay area as well as the teams that we love. I'm still in the drawing board about Bandits gear. There's one shirt that I did. It's kind of for RBLR Sports. It's got a really cool old school helmet logo with our logo at the top. It just says RBLR Sports, and it's in that black and red of the Bandits. But I'm still trying to figure out, Zach, I know, get in my inbox, man. If you have ideas, you got to throw them to me. And if you have an idea out there, we are at RBLR Bandits on Twitter. If you got an idea for us, send it our way. With all that set aside, Zach, who is the next offensive lineman you want to talk about?
The next guy I'm going to talk about is another Pac-12 guy. I know. Oh. Go on. Let me hear it. I get all the Pac-12 guys. I know it happens. This one was actually an accident because I'm not a USC fan. But Damian Mama, tell me that's not one of the coolest names ever.
Mama. There's a bunch of Yo Mama jokes coming his way.
Oh, it's got to. I bet you he's a mama's boy.
Oh, here we go.
So this is another guy who was at the NFL Combine, graded out as a 5.9, which is if I'm not mistaken, that's a high priority free agent. Was not drafted, does not have any NFL experience, but he did play in the AAF, or the XFL, I think.
Mama did play in the XFL. Mama played for the New York Guardians in the XFL, and he was part of the San Diego Fleet in the Alliance. So
this is another guy who is, I feel like we're saying it a lot because we're talking about offensive linemen, but just a big dude. Not the tallest at 6'3.5" weighed in at the Combine at 334. One of the knocks on him, though, is his weight kind of fluctuates. Before he got to USC, he was at 400 pounds. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy who I feel like that's one of the issues with him, is that you got to kind of keep his weight in check, which I never understood as an offensive lineman. Like 400 pounds is harder to move than 300 pounds. But at the same time, realistically, I get it. You're more injury prone at that weight. You're not as healthy. Like I understand it. So the strengths with him is he is very big. He's got an NFL body essentially at a guard position, and he's just weirdly agile for his size. Yeah. Some of his weaknesses, though, being that he is so big, like I said, he's got potentially, and I'm saying potentially because I don't know, I haven't heard anything about him like, oh, well, he's back up to 400 pounds or anything. So I don't know if it's going to be a huge issue, but his weight fluctuating could be an issue. And he gets off track. Like he loses his technique when he blows a block, or when a guy gets past him, it leads to more penalties and along those lines. So if he's doing a good job blocking, he's great. But if he gets beat, he kind of breaks down a little bit.
Got it. Okay. You kind of get on tilt or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good word for it.
All right. Yeah. Man, you see a lot. I mean, this is the USFL, so you're going to see that where, like, prototypical size, prototypical athleticism. Yeah, but and that's kind of what leads into my guy Jaron Jones, 6'6", 320 pounds, out of Notre Dame. A guy who was on the practice squad of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He played in the XFL with the New York Guardians. And here we go. Here's another converted defensive lineman who is super athletic for his size. I mean, you got to be that big and to play D-line or D-end or something like that. Like, yeah, you it's because you can move and not just block. He has really good footwork. And I talked about lateral quickness. He's got it in spades. And on top of that, he has these long tentacle-like arms. So when you're a D lineman, he used those arms to bat down passes. I'm hoping he can use his really long arms to kind of keep players at bay out of the pocket and not to get holding penalties. If he gets beat and you're still holding on to that dude's jersey as he's like ripping you by, I'm hoping he can figure that out. Being that he's so big, he can get outworked by lower pad level rushers. He's a guy who, being so tall, he out of the snap, he'll get very high. And so if he's got to keep working on like staying low, staying compact as he's moving laterally, if he's a tackle. He has some injury history. He tore some knee ligaments, but that was like 6 years ago. I don't think anything's really flared up since then because of it. However, he does have some off-the-field stuff. He has some domestic charges that actually got him 10-game suspension in the NFL. However, since all of that, the charges have been dropped from him. Some new things did pop up in the course of as things were getting dropped. However, it does seem to get cleared now. The reports are pretty gruesome and pretty bad in terms of like popping off, and you never want to read those kind of reports. However, I'm hoping that he's removed himself from that situation based on the finality of that. He can't be around the person that he was involved in. I'm hoping that he's matured and can move on, most importantly personally, but also now that he has this chance professionally, I hope that this is one of the cases, and we have a few in this league, where the off-the-field stuff is probably his biggest downfall and why he's not in the National Football League. And I'm really, really hoping that this can turn the tide for Jaron Jones, man.
Yeah, obviously we wish him the best of luck as far as maybe maturing a little, but yeah, these are all grown men, and I think that's kind of something that we forget, is that even though they're grown men, some of them are younger than us. And I mean, I look at myself as relatively young still at 26, but to see some of these guys coming in at 23, 24, 25, it's like they still have some maturing to do, and I think that's the good thing with them having another chance, is that maybe they haven't hit rock bottom yet, and maybe that's a good thing that they're not hitting rock bottom yet.
Yeah, or and everyone's situation is different. So I'm really, really just hoping for the best that we can get, that he can get past all of this and grow as a person, and also get that coaching, get that ability to move on in whatever his dreams in life are here. So, who is your last offensive lineman? I tried to get away from all of the West Coast guys you would ever know. I even made it white text on a white background. Somehow you still found it, though. Who was the guy?
This was inevitable.
Damn it.
This was going to happen no matter what.
No.
Guys, I don't know if you heard or not. If this is your first time listening, you haven't heard. But if you go watch any other, or go listen to any other episode we ever do, at least once an episode, I like to mention that I am a huge Oregon State Beavers fan. Well, hear me out, guys. Fred, this is going to sound real bad. I do not know how to say his last name, but I'm going to go with Fred Loina. It's a Samoan.
I think you got it.
A Samoan last name. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Fred Loina. He is an offensive guard out of Oregon State University.
Shocking.
He does have time in the NFL on a practice squad with Cleveland.
Okay.
He played a little bit in the AAF and the XFL. I say a little bit because obviously we saw how those two turned out.
Yep.
So he played for San Antonio in the AAF and Los Angeles in the XFL. He is another just tank of a guy. 6'4", 315 pounds. He ran his 40-yard dash at a 5.26. Those are, again, his pro day results because he was unable to go to the combine.
Okay.
So at the Oregon State Pro Day, he ran a 4.26 or a 5.26. Good God, I'm giving them way too much credit here.
I was like, damn, son, that's big.
So he ran a 5.26, which was the fastest out of the guards that were recorded at Pro Days. And he did put up 18 reps at 225. He is a bit smaller weight size than some of the other guys we've been talking about. So that's kind of one of his knocks. He does not mind getting dirty, though. That's one of the positive things. He doesn't mind to do the dirty work. He's aggressive. But with that aggression comes injuries. So his last season at Oregon State, he was hurt 2 different times. Just could not. It seemed like we could not get him to stay healthy. And his time in Cleveland, I could be wrong, but it was another situation where I believe he was cut from Cleveland's practice squad or off-season roster in the final roster cuts because of an injury. I want to say it was to his knee, which is kind of very common for offensive linemen when you think about injuries.
Yeah, and how long ago was that injury?
That was, I want to say it was 2 years ago. He was drafted in, oh no, it would have been 3 years ago. He was undrafted, signed with Cleveland in 2018.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm hoping the rehab's gone well and any subsequent stuff's been taken care of. So, man, so how stoked are you to finally have an Oregon State guy on this team?
Listen, it is so exciting. and I say that because even in the NFL, we don't have many Oregon State alum that play in the NFL. Right off the rip, I can think of, we have Jordan Poyer, who plays for Buffalo. We have Johnny Hecker, who is a punter. And why do I know his name? Because he played at Oregon State. I don't know punters. And he's technically a free agent now. So it's exciting to see. There's 2 Oregon State Beavers in the USFL, and it's exciting to just get that opportunity to root for someone, whether they're on Tampa or not, because they played for a college that I enjoy watching. And we don't get very many of those opportunities. And we're not yes, we're in the Pac-12 and we're technically a big name school, kind of, but you look at Oregon and I can think of times that I've been like, oh, I'm an Oregon State fan. They're like, oh, so you root for the Ducks. I'm like, no, I hate the Ducks. Oregon State, we're the Beavers. They're like, wait, the Beavers, that's their name? I'm like, yeah, that's them. So for me, it's just exciting to be able to, and I know I've said it a couple times, but it's exciting for me to be able to see some success, whether it's NFL or not. I enjoy seeing them be able to go on and have careers in the sport that they went to college and gave us good times in college for.
Well, I mean, technically, like Oregon State and South Florida, where I went, right? We are the smallest schools that some of these players that are on the Bandits have been in. I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, we've talked about just today, Georgia, Michigan, BYU, USC, Notre Dame,
Vanderbilt,
right? Vanderbilt's a big school too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
So my last guy is Matthew Burl Jr. This was Jaron Jones was a supplemental pick as well. Matthew Burl Jr. is also a supplemental pick. 6'3", 300 pounds. There is a absolute just units on our, in our
exactly.
room. They better like get really good like substructure in the rooms in that D line or in that O line room, man.
Exactly.
Well, here's a guy. Technically, he was drafted out of Sam Houston State, which that would be the smallest school. Think about this. He started at Ohio State. And he had scholarship. The Ohio State. Yes, the Ohio State. But Burl was offered scholarships from Alabama, Florida, Florida State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia Tech, and Auburn.
So no big schools.
Yeah, just little tiny ones. And so no worry he went to Sam Houston after that, right? But here's a guy who is, again, quick for his size. You're talking big frame, very big quickness out of this. And here's the best trait. This boy is not a gentle giant. This man gets physical. And the word that was used in the scouting report is bully. He likes to bully people, which I love. I love to hear that in the trenches. Yeah, but he's kind of always used his size as his best weapon, right? He's always been larger than his competition, and at this level, I'm gonna want to see. And the scouting reports have said that like his technique just needs to. He's raw because he's just so big, and he can overpower most guys. However, now we're all big, we're all bullies, we're all quick, we're all that. How do you separate yourself? And that's like the fundamentals. Not very good with lateral movement, which is why he was a tackle in college, and they converted him to offensive guard. But here's a little quirk here. He was drafted and listed as a guard, a center, and a nose tackle. So I've now talked about 3 different guys on this roster that either played nose tackle or D-line, played DN, and now play offensive line. And I like that for a number of reasons. One, just versatility. I like that in this league, people are going to get hurt. We're going to have to fill in some gaps. There's going to be depth guys that we don't even know yet because they're going to get signed post injuries or as they just become available and stuff like that. So guys like Burl or Regan or Kaufusi, who've played different positions, might be called in to play those positions. But also, just as a offensive lineman, if you can play or have played defensive line positions, you know where they're going. You understand why this play is going here and how we're attacking the defense in this way or that way, and what they're going to do to counteract that. So I love that. I love it from a mental perspective. I love it from a pedigree perspective. And I love it that this guy is raw, but has shown that he's been able to do some good things on the football field. So we'll see if he can do that for the Bandits. So I've kind of brought out some patterns here. Are you on the same train with me on this, or am I going to the dispensary too much?
No, I think you nailed it right on the head. I think that you're exactly right when you say, and you're on your side, that you did name at least 3 of those 4 guys that have defensive line experience, and I think that we might be downplaying a little how important that is, because let's say hypothetically they only play offensive line, right?
Yeah.
Even if they only play offensive line, all 3 of those guys, whether they were good at it or not, know the mind of a defensive player.
Right.
Or of a defensive lineman. So, okay, this guy, I know that he likes to do a swim move. I know how to do a swim move, so I also know how to defend against a swim move.
Hopefully.
Exactly. Like, obviously, this is best case scenario, because I could be way off here. But I just feel like we're not maybe putting enough emphasis on how important that is, in my opinion, because that's huge to have the mind of a defensive back, or like if you're playing a receiver and play defensive back, you know how to get them off of their back pedal, or you know how to get them off balance. And I think that's the same way for an offensive lineman playing defensive line, or defensive lineman playing offensive line, because you know the techniques that you need to use against certain things. At least you should if you're at this level, I would imagine.
Yeah. When a lot of these
guys,
I
think that's huge.
A lot of these guys that are really big, but they've used that explosiveness as defensive players. And now you're just tooling it where, okay, yeah, maybe he can't go from a 3 technique and then run 7 yards and make a swim move and tackle a quarterback. But maybe he can backpedal for 5 yards for about 5 seconds, right?
Exactly.
So I love it, and I love that a lot of these guys that we've both brought up. They're dirty, they're big, they're bold, they're quick, athletic, right? Like those are the words we've used from every one of these guys. So it's gonna be really interesting, man. Vegas is hyping us up. We're in the power rankings as top, and I think this is a lot of it. I think that when you look at like last week, we looked at our wide receivers, and we're just salivating over like, whoa. And now we look at the trenches, and we're like, Jordan Ta'amu, and we talked about Jordan Ta'amu 2 weeks ago, and we're like, so we have a accurate quarterback who can sling the ball. We've got a line that hopefully can protect him, and we've got pass catchers that can reel in the ball if he gets it to them on target. So it's like, we're looking pretty good, Mr. Blaine.
I'm feeling very confident in us, and I just to let you guys on a little insight into kind of our conversations outside of the show. Eureka and I were talking about we were going over the supplemental draft as it was happening, and I sent a message to him that was like, he said something about another big name school getting drafted, and I sent a message to him that said I would be shocked if we draft anyone from a small school.
Yeah.
Literally the next pick was Burl from Sam Houston State, and I said, well, damn, there goes my there goes my bet. Well, and then we did some research and found out that he played, I think, 3 years at Ohio State.
Most of his it's like JF3, where it's like, Florida Atlantic, sure, but
also played at Auburn, Florida State. Yeah, so it was like, I just thought that was funny because I don't know why I remember that conversation so well, but it was like, I'd be shocked if we get a small school guy. Oh, Sam Houston State. I was like, damn,
because they're listening, wrong. Dude. They're listening.
They've got to be.
Well, you're listening, and I wanted to thank you for your time, you, the listener, making us part of your drive to work or drive home or lunch break or however you are taking time out of your day. We cannot stress this enough, how much we appreciate you, and our RBLR Sports account is now over 400 followers strong. The Bandits account is getting up there as well. If you could do us the favor, we are at RBLR Bandits on Twitter. We are also hosted at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're everywhere. I said at the front end, and I'll say it, you made it this far. You are the most awesome listener in the world. I'm only going to beg you for one more thing. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple, Google Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube. We're every major platform. Your boys at RBLR are right here. So hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. And that way, again, you get this every single week that we do this. So that's it for me. Mr. Blaine, you have the final word. Let's go. Bandit Ball is almost here, man. It's less than 20 something days away.
Less than 23 days away. And we hope that you guys come along on this journey with us, because we're learning the things just as quick as you guys are. So it's and Eureka said it, if you give us a follow, if you have any questions, anything you want us to talk about, anything at all, don't be afraid to comment on any of our socials. Anything, our personal socials are all on there. So whatever you guys want to do, we appreciate you guys listening. We love you guys for it, and go Bandits.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.